I want you to listen to this story. It started with an ordinary dream, but night after night, it became more real until I realized it wasn't just a nightmare. It was a warning. Every dream came true, detail by detail. And each time, death moved closer, first to people I barely knew, and then to the ones I love. The final dream was always the same: the birth of our child, and the moment my wife and I take our last breath. I tried to run. I tried to trick fate. But there are some things you just can't escape. Now, you're about to hear what happened when I finally faced it. Sit back, turn off the lights, turn the volume up, and enjoy. Remember, you can't outrun fate. Part 1. The dream that wouldn't let go. I woke up screaming. My heart was pounding like I'd just sprinted a mile, my shirt clinging to me with cold sweat. Beside me, Emily slept soundly, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. 6 months along. Our daughter was due in just over 12 weeks. But in my head, the images from the dream burned as vividly as if I'd just lived them. We were in a delivery room. Harsh white light. The smell of antiseptic. Emily lay on the bed, her face slick with sweat, eyes wide with exhaustion. I stood at her side, holding her hand, whispering that everything would be okay. Then, the sound I'd been waiting for, our baby's first cry. A doctor placed the tiny, wriggling body on Emily's chest. She smiled for half a second, and then the light in her eyes went out. She stopped breathing, just like that. I shouted her name, grabbed her shoulders, but my hands passed straight through her, like she was made of smoke. That's when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong in a delivery room. A quiet, melodic giggle coming from somewhere behind me. I turned. At the far corner of the room, where the shadows swallowed the light, stood a tall, thin figure. It wasn't wearing scrubs. It wasn't even moving, just watching. I couldn't see a face, only the outline, but I knew it was smiling. Somehow I knew. Then I woke up. Part 2. The first sign. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of that dream. I told myself it was just stress, new dad nerves, nothing more. But the way it felt, it was too real. By morning, Emily noticed I hadn't slept. "You look like you fought a war in your head," she said, setting a mug of coffee in front of me. "Just a nightmare," I muttered. She didn't press. She was humming as she buttered her toast, and for a moment, I almost forgot the cold weight in my chest. Almost. It wasn't until I left for work that it hit me. The hospital from my dream had a very specific detail: a flickering light in the corner of the delivery room. It pulsed irregularly, almost like a heartbeat, and I remembered thinking it was strange at the time. That morning, as I stopped by the small café near my office, I froze in place. The overhead light above the counter was flickering in the exact same rhythm. Not just similar, identical. The barista noticed me staring. "Sorry, it's been doing that all morning. The electrician's coming tomorrow." My hands were suddenly cold. This wasn't the kind of thing you could convince yourself was a coincidence. I grabbed my coffee and left without another word. But as soon as I got outside, my phone buzzed with a notification from the hospital. Upcoming appointment. Delivery room tour. Scheduled for March 14th, 2 p.m. I didn't remember booking it. Emily hadn't mentioned it. But March 14th was already burned into my brain. It was the date circled on the whiteboard in the background of my dream. Part 3. The clock starts ticking. I spent my lunch break in my car, parked under the shade of an old oak tree, scrolling through my phone. March 14th. The delivery room tour. In the dream, I'd seen the whiteboard on the wall just before before it happened. Dates were written in red marker. I couldn't remember all of them, but March 14th was one. The first one. I searched my email, nothing from the hospital about booking the tour. Emily hadn't mentioned it. It felt like it had just appeared. That night, over dinner, I asked casually, "Hey, Did you sign us up for that delivery room tour? She looked up mid-bite. No. I thought maybe you did. My stomach dropped. I didn't. We stared at each other for a second too long. Then she laughed nervously. Weird. Maybe it's just a default booking thing? But deep down, I knew better. After dinner, while Emily was in the shower, I sat on the couch trying to remember more of the dream. My memory kept snagging on a moment before the delivery, a sound. Not the baby's cry, not Emily's voice, the thud. In the dream, I'd heard it coming from the hallway. And now, thinking back, I remembered something else, a figure passing by the door, just a shadow, before that sound. The hospital tour was 4 days away, and if the dream was more than just a dream, then maybe it wasn't just about the birth. Maybe it was about the days leading up to it too. That night, when I finally drifted off, I had another dream. Different room, same flickering light, and this time, the shadow in the corner moved closer. Part 4. The first confirmation. In the second dream, I'd been sitting in a hospital waiting area. The flickering light was just overhead, and I could smell strong coffee. A woman across from me was flipping through a dog-eared magazine. She looked up and said one sentence. They always call the wrong name first. Then the intercom crackled, and a nurse's voice called out, "Mr. Kendall?" And the woman laughed, shaking her head. It was such a strange, mundane detail that I barely thought about it when I woke up. But the next afternoon, I went to pick up Emily from her prenatal yoga class. She wanted to grab lunch, so we stopped by the cafe near her studio. It was busy, so we had to share a long table with a few strangers. Halfway through my sandwich, the woman across from us set down her tea and looked at me with the same curious tilt of her head I'd seen in the dream. They always call the wrong name first, she said. I froze. My skin prickled. The cafe speaker crackled. Mobile order for Kendall. The woman laughed. The exact same laugh from the dream. Emily looked at me. You okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, just déjà vu. But inside, my stomach was churning. This wasn't coincidence. It was the first tick on the clock. The dreams weren't just random flashes. They were a countdown. And if they'd started this far from the due date, that meant there were still a lot of events between now and the delivery room. And every single one was going to happen. Part 5, faster than it should be. That night, I dreamed again. I was standing in a hospital corridor, holding a paper cup of coffee. Emily wasn't with me. I could feel she was somewhere else in the building. The flickering light was there again, a few steps ahead. Then the sound hit, the sharp, screeching squeal of wheels on linoleum. A hospital bed came hurtling past, pushed by 2 nurses. On it was a man with an oxygen mask, his face pale, eyes closed. As they rushed by, a clipboard fell to the floor. I bent to pick it up. Name, Harold M. Ellis. Status, cardiac arrest. I jolted awake, my chest tight. This one wasn't like the coffee shop woman. This was real danger. All morning, I kept telling myself it had to be something in the distant future, maybe weeks away. But just after lunch, Emily called me. Her voice was tight. I need you to come to the hospital, she said. It's my Uncle Harold. He collapsed at work. They rushed him here. The air left my lungs. What hospital? I asked, though I already knew the answer. When I got there, I saw him. Same pale face. Same oxygen mask. Same squealing wheels. This time, when the clipboard fell, I didn't touch it. I just stared, because I already knew what it would say. That's when the cold realization hit me. The dreams weren't waiting for the due date to start killing. The chain had already begun. And the closer we got to March 14th, the faster the events were going to come. Part 6. Her turn. I'd hoped the dreams might slow down. They didn't. That night, I fell asleep almost instantly, like something was pulling me under. This time, I wasn't in the hospital. I was outside, standing in a parking garage lit by yellow, buzzing lights. My breath was visible, like it was cold. I could hear footsteps echoing somewhere ahead of me. Emily's voice. I think I dropped my keys. I saw her. She was walking toward the far corner of the garage, scanning the ground. I started to move toward her, but the air suddenly felt thick, like I was wading through water. I couldn't shout, couldn't make a sound. Then I noticed the shadow, long moving along the wall behind her. It stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. I couldn't see its face, but its arm was raised, holding something heavy. I tried to run. My feet wouldn't move. The shadow swung, and just before it connected, Emily turned. Her eyes met mine, wide with terror. I woke up choking on my own breath. The clock read 3:04 a.m. Emily was asleep beside me, completely unaware. I touched her shoulder just to feel her warmth, to make sure she was real. The next morning, she told me she had a late doctor's appointment downtown and would park in the hospital's garage. My chest tightened. "Text me when you get there," I said, "and when you leave. No matter what." She laughed. "You're acting like I'm going into a war zone." But I didn't laugh, because I'd already seen what was waiting for her there. Part 7. Running into the inevitable. I left work early, telling my boss it was a family emergency. In truth, I was parked 2 levels above Emily's doctor's office, watching the hospital garage entrance like a hawk. At 4:17 p.m., I saw her car pull in. She didn't notice me. I stayed back, letting her walk ahead, my pulse matching the echo of her heels on the concrete. She paused near the far corner, digging through her purse. My heart started hammering. This was it, the moment from the dream. I scanned the pillars, the shadows. Nothing. Just the low hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant rumble of traffic. I took a step toward her, and that's when movement caught my eye. A tall man stepped out from between 2 cars, a tire iron in his hand. "Emily!" I shouted. She froze, turning toward me, and the man lunged. I ran, faster than I ever had in my life, closing the gap just as he swung. The metal missed her head by inches, clanging against the concrete pillar. I slammed into him, the impact knocking the tire iron out of his hand. It clattered across the floor, spinning away into the shadows. The man shoved me off and bolted toward the exit. I chased him, but he disappeared between rows of parked cars before I could get a good look at his face. When I came back, Emily was shaking, her eyes wide. What the hell was that? I didn't answer, because even though she was unhurt, I knew the dream had still happened, almost frame for frame. I'd stopped the blow, but the sequence was intact. It was like the universe didn't care about the details. The events would happen, one way or another. Part 8. The pattern. That night, I didn't want to sleep. I tried everything: coffee, TV, pacing the living room. But at some point, exhaustion pulled me under. The dream came immediately. I was back in the hospital, but this time the corridors were empty, silent except for the faint flicker of that damned light overhead. I walked past rooms with open doors, all of them dark. At the end of the hallway, I saw 2 figures lying on gurneys, side by side. One was Emily. The other was me. Neither of us was moving. Somewhere behind me, a slow, deliberate set of footsteps echoed. I turned, but the hall stretched into darkness. The sound was coming closer, 1 step at a time. When I woke, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I sat up in bed, gasping, and realized Emily was awake, watching me. "You were talking in your sleep," she said quietly. "You said my name, and then you screamed." I rubbed my face. "It's just a nightmare. Don't worry." But it wasn't just anything. I grabbed a notebook from the desk and started writing down every dream I could remember from the past week, every detail, every location, every name. That's when I saw it, the pattern. First, the harmless coincidence at the café. Then Harold in cardiac arrest. Then Emily in the garage. Each dream ended with someone hurt or dead. And each time, the danger was moving closer to us. If the sequence held, the next one wouldn't just be about Emily. It would be about both of us. Part 9, the end of the line. This time I didn't fight sleep. If the dreams were a chain, maybe knowing the last link would give me a way to break it. I drifted off sometime after midnight. The flickering light was back, but now it was over the delivery room bed. Emily was lying there, sweat-drenched, breathing hard. I was at her side, holding her hand, just like in the first dream. The doctor said, "Almost there." The baby's cry came. For a heartbeat, everything felt perfect. Then the monitor beside the bed began to scream. Emily's grip on my hand slackened. "Stay with me," I begged, but she was already gone. And then, something new. The shadow in the corner moved toward me. Slowly. The closer it came, the colder the air got, until I could see my own breath. It stopped right in front of me. Even without a face, I felt its gaze. When it spoke, its voice was like glass scraping on stone, one after the other. That's how it works. I looked down. My own hands were pale, bloodless. The heart monitor beside me flatlined. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the calendar on the wall, March 14th circled in red. I woke up gasping, my skin ice cold. Emily stirred beside me. "Another nightmare?" I nodded, unable to speak. Because now I knew the truth. The dreams weren't warning me to save her. They were showing me exactly how we'd both die. Part 10, Breaking the Chain. By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. We weren't going to the delivery room tour. Hell, we weren't going to set foot in that hospital at all. Over breakfast, I tried to sound casual. "Hey, I was thinking, what if we switched hospitals? Maybe one closer to your mom's place." Emily frowned. "Why? We've been going to Dr. Patel since the start." I don't like the idea of you giving birth in the same place where your uncle almost died." I lied. She gave me a long, searching look, but finally shrugged. "If it makes you feel better." That afternoon, I called the hospital and canceled the tour. My heart felt lighter than it had in days, until that night. The dream came again. Same delivery room, same flickering light. But this time, the calendar didn't say March 14th. The date was smudged, like someone had rubbed it out with their thumb. And under the smear was a new date, written in fresh red ink, March 10th. I jerked awake, ball rising in my throat. The chain hadn't broken. It had just moved closer. Part 11, Days Away. I didn't want to sleep, but exhaustion doesn't care about fear. When the dream came, it was immediate and brutal. I was in our kitchen. Sunlight poured through the window. Emily was at the sink, humming, washing vegetables. The flickering light wasn't here, but I knew the feeling. Then the sound hit, the sharp screech of tires, followed by the shattering crash of glass. Emily turned toward the noise just as the wall beside her exploded inward. A car slammed halfway into the kitchen, pinning her against the counter. I tried to move toward her, but the shadow was already there, between us. Watching. When I woke, it was still dark outside. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold a glass of water. I checked the calendar. March 10th was 4 days away. All morning, I kept glancing at Emily, wondering if I should tell her. Would she even believe me? Or would she think I'd lost my mind? At lunch, she caught me staring. "What?" she asked, smiling faintly. I swallowed hard. I had another dream. Her smile faded. "The same kind. Worse," I said. "And it's soon. Too soon." She reached across the table, took my hand. "Then tell me everything." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Because if I told her, and she believed me, we'd be in this together. And if she didn't, I'd just sound like a man losing his grip. I looked into her eyes and realized I had less than 4 days to decide, or to change fate entirely. Part 12, Moving the Pieces. That night, I told her everything. The first dream in the delivery room. The dates. The café. Uncle Harold. The parking garage. All of it. Emily didn't laugh. She didn't roll her eyes. She just listened, her fingers tightening around mine as I spoke. When I finished, she sat back, silent for a long moment. "You think March 10th is the day?" she asked quietly. "I don't think," I said. "I know." "Then we leave," she said, sudden and sharp. "We go somewhere far. Tonight. No kitchen, no cars, no, whatever that was in your dream." It sounded insane, but it was better than sitting still. By midnight, we'd packed 2 duffel bags and were on the highway, heading toward her cousin's cabin 3 hours away. For a while, I felt almost hopeful, until we stopped for gas. Emily went inside to grab snacks. I was standing by the pump when I heard the squeal of brakes, the exact sound from the dream. My stomach dropped. A sedan swerved hard into the gas station, smashing into the store's front windows. Shards of glass rained down. I ran toward the noise, shouting her name. Emily was on the floor just inside, dazed but alive, a few feet from where the car had stopped. If she'd been at the counter instead of the snack aisle, we'd left the house to escape fate, and it had followed us here. The date might still be March 10th, but I realized then that the dreams weren't about places. They were about moments. And moments can happen anywhere. Part 13. Nowhere left to run. We didn't go to the cabin. After the crash at the gas station, we just kept driving, putting as much distance as we could between us and everything. By dawn, we were in a cheap roadside motel, the kind with faded carpets and a flickering neon vacancy sign. Emily sat on the bed, staring at the floor, her knuckles white. "This isn't working," she said. "Every time we move, it follows." She wasn't wrong. The dreams were coming faster now. Every time I closed my eyes, even for a second, I saw fragments. A hospital bed, a monitor flatlining, the shadow standing just behind me. By mid-morning, I had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was all I had. Keep moving, keep changing locations, never let the chain lock into place. We left the motel and headed west. But 20 miles later, traffic ground to a halt. Up ahead, an ambulance's lights flashed in the distance. When we finally crept past, I saw a smashed pickup on its side. A paramedic knelt beside a young man, blood soaking through his shirt. I recognized him instantly. I'd seen his face the night before in a dream. He was supposed to die after March 10th. Emily saw my expression. "It's speeding up, isn't it?" I nodded slowly, the truth sinking in like ice water. "It's not waiting for dates anymore. It's coming for us now." Somewhere deep down, I knew the chain had already shortened, and that meant the delivery room wasn't days away. It could be tomorrow. Part 14. Right where it wants us. We were only an hour from the state line when Emily winced, one hand clutching her stomach. "It's fine," she insisted, but her voice was tight, and sweat beaded on her forehead. 5 minutes later, she doubled over in the passenger seat. "Something's wrong." I pulled into the nearest hospital, a small, rural place I'd never seen before. Anything was better than driving for hours with her in pain. The ER staff moved fast, rushing her to maternity. A nurse told me she might be going into early labor. I followed, numb with fear, trying to remind myself this wasn't the hospital. This wasn't the place from my dream. Then we turned the corner into the delivery room. The flickering light was there, buzzing softly in the corner. The whiteboard on the wall was half erased, but I could still see the faint red circle around today's date. Emily looked at me, confused. "What is it?" I couldn't answer. I was frozen in the doorway, every muscle screaming at me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The doctor's voice sounded far away. "We need to get you ready. It's happening fast." I stepped inside, and the air turned cold. In the corner, just beyond the reach of the light, a tall, thin shadow shifted slightly, like it was settling in for the show. The chain hadn't just caught up to us. It had been waiting here the whole time. Part 15, Breaking Point. Push, the doctor said, his voice urgent. Emily's grip on my hand was crushing. The monitor beeped steadily, but I knew what was coming, the flatline. I looked at the corner. The shadow was closer now, almost touching the edge of the bed. I didn't think. I just moved. I stepped between it and Emily, blocking its view. Not this time, I whispered, my voice shaking. The light above us flickered wildly, and for a heartbeat the room felt wrong. Like gravity had shifted, like the air itself was pressing against me. Emily screamed, and the baby's cry filled the room. My knees went weak with relief until I realized the monitor hadn't flatlined. Instead, the beeping was faster, stronger. Emily's chest rose and fell. Her eyes were open, alive. The shadow didn't move. It just stood there, head tilting slightly, before slowly retreating into the darkness until it was gone. The doctor smiled. "She's perfect," he said, handing the baby to Emily. I leaned down, kissing her forehead. She whispered, "You saved us." I wanted to believe that, but in the back of my mind, I knew shadows didn't just give up. They waited. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm truly glad you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them.